Hello, sword friends, and welcome to another episode of I'm Just Going to Ramble at You for a good 20 minutes or so. So, it's been like a week since my first video, which was impressions, and now I feel like it's important for me to delineate some goals going into a new hobby or skill. So, whenever you start a new endeavor, it is good to go into it with intentions and plans, and have good expectations going in, because if you go into, for example, if you go into swords and you're like, I'm going to be the best swords person ever, you're not going to have a great time if you're continually proved wrong through the process. So even already I have changed from my original goals with starting HEMA and my new goals. So this is like a goal video. So we're going to go through some serious goals, some silly goals, and I'm probably just going to ramble because that's what I do. So let's start with the serious goals. My initial reasons for getting into HEMA was first physical fitness. And I realized you could say well, going to the gym and being intentional that way might be better for your physical fitness. Because how often will you use swords in your everyday life? But incorrect. Because you need motivation in order to just go to the gym and lift things up. And if you don't have motivation, you won't do the physical fitness activity. So swords, for some reason, are incredibly motivating to me. And getting better at swords is incredibly motivating. And so I'm suddenly motivated to be more physically active than I have been the last 10 months. So that is great news. My second reason was meeting more local friends in the Denver area, because more friends is only a good thing. And I feel like if we both have swords in common, we probably have a lot of other baggage. We have a lot of sword baggage behind that, which means that we probably we have matching luggage and we should be friends. That was a weird metaphor, but I think that I've had really good luck, even just in the last month, of meeting people who I vibe with so well, because we both have this one thing of swords, which means that we also have we enjoy fantasy, we enjoy Lord of the Rings, we like video games, we like anime, we're there's just all sorts of we even have similar music tastes, Viking metal. Who knew that was just, oh, you like swords, you probably have heard of these bands. It's odd how interconnected the web behind swords is. So I'm meeting a lot of cool, awesome new people, and that was one of my initial reasons, and I feel like it's happening, and it will continue to happen. And as we do tournaments and things, and we start exploring the world, we'll make even more friends, and that's great. That will continue to be a goal of mine. But my other initial reason for starting HEMA is, have you heard of Bicolline? Okay. Bicolline is imagine, I'm going to use Momo O'Brien's words, but imagine a Renaissance fair plus a music festival plus a 3,000 person battle LARP, a war in the Canadian wilderness. This Bicolline is all of that in one. You camp out for 8 days. It's like a full medieval to Renaissance village, and it looks amazing. And I haven't been yet. We were supposed to go this year, but that obviously did not happen. It is 2020, but it is still the next year, August, summer 2021 is still a go, apparently. And if I'm gonna battle with swords, it's not real swords, they're LARPing, so it's boffer weapons. But I have no idea what I'm doing, and I felt like I needed some sword lessons before going into a battle, because I don't want to let down my battle bros. So yeah, I joined HEMA because I wanted to be a better battle bro. So yeah, initial 3 reasons: fitness, friends, Bicolline, have now morphed into more serious goal setting when it comes to HEMA and swords for myself, because I think I'm now committed to this hobby, both mentally but also financially. And so I want to make sure that I'm continuing and setting goals. Now, to talk about my new goals, or we're gonna get a little bit more nerdy. We need to talk about the trichotomy of control. Now, this concept comes from ancient Stoic philosophy. It might have been before that as well. but this is how I first learned about it. And when you apply the trichotomy of control to goal setting, I think that it does a few interesting things that'll keep you invested in the thing that you are setting goals for. So just a brief preface. To talk about the trichotomy of control, you have to understand there are 3 branches of things that you can control and things you can't, and it's kind of on a scale. So first, we have the world, things that you cannot control, things like the weather, for example, for now. Number 2 would be things that you can partially control. So you might not be able to control the weather, but you can control whether or not you looked up the weather beforehand, if you chose to bring an umbrella or rubber boots, if you dressed appropriately for the weather. And third, the mind. This is the only thing that you generally have full control over. So you might not be able to control the weather. It's too late. You forgot to bring an umbrella, but you can control how you perceive and react to the weather. You could say, this sucks, and I'm going to be sad because the weather is bad, and I'm going to be a grump, and that's your choice. You controlled that entirely. Or you could say, you know what, my garden needed this water, and I'm going to be happy, and look at that rainbow. Like you can be quite positive instead. So now when we take that concept and we apply it to goal setting, we have 3 different types of goals. Do you see? You could be facing someone who is much more experienced than you, who is much taller than you, much stronger than you. You might be shorter, you might be less experienced, you might have less endurance. Even the circumstances, the world could be not in your favor. The ground might be uneven. Your equipment might be not the best or falling loose. These things you can't fully control. You can only partially control them, if that. And so they're in the first category. If you set goals in this first category, you're going to be disappointed. At the moment of the spar, you can't control your opponent, your weaknesses, or the circumstances themselves. So you should acknowledge these things, but you shouldn't let them control you, because you have other things you can be in control of. Okay, now second, the body. These are things that you can partially control. And a lot of these things have to do with preparing for a set of circumstances, not controlling the circumstances once you're in them. So let's say I know that I don't have very good endurance right now, and I can partially control that for the future by working on my cardio, getting sword swole and doing more lifting, going through my drills each day, making sure that I am practicing well, not pushing myself too hard, but pushing myself enough to improve. Inside the spar itself, you also have things that you're partially in control of. Will you use a guard or technique appropriately? Will you remember the things that you've practiced? Will you let it all fall apart? Will you not trip over your own feet? Will you use your feet appropriately? Will you be in the right place? Will you see that your opponent is showing that they're going to do a specific thing and then reacting appropriately? These things you can partially control, even if you are not controlling your opponent. Now third, the mind in the way that it applies to swords. If you are fighting an opponent, this is the only thing you can fully control. How you are reacting to the spar itself. Will you be a good sport? Will you act with honor and nobility? Will you have good sportsmanship whether or not you win or if you lose? Will you let those first and second categories, the world and the circumstances, bog you down? How will you react to those circumstances not being in your favor? Will you throw a fit? Will you run away? Will you refuse to spar at all? These things you can control. You can decide, hey, I'm going to go in this with as good a mindset as I can create right now, despite everything that might be against me. Okay, so now we have gone over the trichotomy of control. We've gone over kind of how that applies to swords. We haven't quite touched on how we can goal set in accordance with the trichotomy of control. So we're gonna start with the worst goals, just bad goals that you should not make for yourself, no matter how tempting they might be, because they sound like really strong goals. These are first category goals. The world, things that you cannot control, but people are so tempted to set goals in this space. I will win every tournament I enter. I will win every spar, and I will be the best swords person in this club. These are terrible goals. You can't control the world. If you set goals like this, you will be defeated by them. You will only be frozen by them. You might start to unconsciously retreat every time an opportunity comes by. That means you might fail at those previously set goals. Why are you going to accept a spar against someone you know is better than you if your goal is intrinsically to prove that you're better at a thing than they are? You won't enter the tournament. You might lose. You will be afraid of that friendly spar. You won't join the local club. You won't attend local meetups. And these goals keep you isolated. They'll make you into a worse practitioner no matter what you're trying to be, whether it's a writer or a pianist or a swords person. Cutting yourself off by making goals in that first category means you can't fail, and failure is necessary to get better at a thing. So instead, we want to make goals in the second and third categories as much as possible. Here are my third category goals. Now, this is having to do with the mind. These are all things that I can fully control. First, I want to remain a good sportsman, regardless of the results of a spar or a tournament. Second, I want to be helpful and encouraging and welcoming to new students and to old students, because I want this hobby to become bigger. I want more people to join. I want to spar lots of different kinds of people, and I want to be the kind of person who makes other people want to do this. Okay, and my third goal is I'm going to listen. I'm going to be present in my lessons and during practice without distractions. I think that's very important. When you're learning a new thing, you have to have that intentional practice. And if you don't have that, why even practice? So no phones, making sure you really listen to instructors, and being that courteous about when you are receiving feedback. So right now, I'm the worst. I am quite bad at swords, very bad. Everyone has something to say, and they're kind, but everyone has something to say after watching me spar with someone, because there's a lot of things to correct. And as a beginner, it's difficult for me to keep in mind, oh hey, you're on your tippy toes again, while also trying to use a specific guard technique or use other things. And so making sure that I continue to listen when people give me advice, as opposed to just holding up one thing to get better at. You need to remain open to all the different things that you need to get better at, even as you personally need to prioritize which ones to work on first. So I will listen. That's my goal. Listen. And my fourth goal ties back into that listening goal. I said, take advice of any kind with good grace. Because I think people are well-intentioned when they give advice. So making sure that you respond in kind as opposed to respond defensively is important. Okay, so you might notice those goals don't feel very fun, do they? Have a good time. Be a good sport. Listen. Hey, listen. They're not very fun. So we need goals that are just within our reach. We need some challenging goals, and that's where category 2 comes in. Category 2 is that partially controlled thing. So that's your body, basically. So we have the world, we have the body, we have the mind. Let's make some goals for that second category, the body. So my own second category goals include, number 1, spar every Saturday. I just think that's very important. Going and seeing other people and keeping it fresh once per week, I think is doable and is important for me to achieve, and pushing myself to actually spar on Saturdays as opposed to just watch other people swing swords around, because wow, that is so fun to watch. Okay. Number 2 is to practice solo drills every morning. Now, I think this is important because a lot of what I'm missing is that muscle memory, and as soon as I can build that into a routine, that's the sooner I build that muscle memory and just the muscles in general. And so I have like a big list of different drills to go through each morning. Number 3, keep my equipment in good shape. I don't have a sword right now. My sword wall is still sadly empty. But we will ramble about this at the end of the video. But the guild just placed an order for a bunch of swords, and my sword is going to be here in, they estimate, 3 months or so. So I don't want to be the kind of person that just lets my sword get really raggedy and like all the burrs along the edges and just rust. Like, I'm afraid of my sword rusting. Like, this is like a deep-seated fear now that I've bought one. And like your actual jacket and gear and everything itself, like I want to keep that clean, pristine as much as I can, and keep my sword in really good shape because it's important to me. Number 4, and this comes from my dance background, but it's so important, dynamically stretch and warm up before doing swords, any swords. Like, if you do not have enough time to do that before a spar, then you don't have enough time to spar. Like, it is so important to have that. I have been trying to convert a dynamic dance stretching warm-up into a more HEMA and sword focused like dynamic stretching routine, and I'm building that out to include like stretches to prevent concussions and stretches to prevent like those joint injuries and all of that. Once it's done and I've tested it a little bit, actually, if any of you would like to help me test out a dynamic stretching / warm-up routine, slide into my DMs, because I think it is really important, especially the more I read about concussions in HEMA and like the most common injuries being like fingers and things. I do think, number 1, any sport, very important, dynamic stretching beforehand, every time. There's no excuse. And number 2, there are things that we could be doing to prevent finger injury and concussions in general. Like, there are some neck stretches that we can throw in to both build the muscle over time. But dynamic stretching, it's not actually about deepening your flexibility or building muscle. It's literally just just before you do a thing, increasing that range of mobility and already doing all of the motions that you might end up having to do over the course of a spar. So ankle work, lunges, all of these things are very important. Anyway, I'm getting way sidetracked, but yeah, my goal is to always do a dynamic stretch before swordplay, and you should do that too. I realize I told you last video that I'm not going to give advice on this channel. However, I am going to give advice on this channel, and the advice is, please do dynamic stretching before you play with a sword. Oh yeah, and my number 5. Okay, my number 5 is to take notes. This has to do with my listening, so the listening on the other one. Taking notes after every lesson, after every spar, writing down who did you spar with, what worked, what didn't, what did you learn, did you get any advice? Like, writing that down helps my mind kind of process through, and it gives me a baseline for improvement in the future. So when you look back through your notes, like, oh yeah, that Monday we did go over these cuts. What were those again? Like, oh yeah, I should be using that sort of guard. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Like, you're able to keep it fresh, even though time has passed, because time will pass and you will forget things, and it's just better to have not forgotten things. Okay, yeah, and number 6 is to push myself to spar with more people. So right now I have like, is it 3 or 4? I have like 3 or 4 spar buds in my guild that I just feel very safe and comfortable sparring with. It's like 2 girls and 2 guys, and I've sparred with them in the past, and I just feel really good and comfortable like going up to them and be like, hey, do you want to spar? but I should branch out and spar other people, because that is how you improve as a swords person. Like having a variety of different spar buddies is good. So I'm gonna push myself to go outside of my comfort zone and ask other people to spar with me. And last but not least, I really want to go to tournaments. I don't even necessarily want to compete. I just want to go. I'm such a conference person. I love being in a space where everyone has like like one shared interest, or in this case, many, and just meeting all of the people and watching all the people, and everyone's excited. And I really enjoy Saturdays right now because I just go and watch people hit each other with swords. And it sounds like a tournament's just a lot of that, which, my cup of tea. I want this to happen. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to like spar with new people, and meeting and sparring with new people can only make you better. Okay, so that's my list of secondary goals. So you might notice that these are not always attainable. Like me saying, I will spar every Saturday. Well, okay, will you? What about if there's a blizzard? What if your car breaks down? What if you become horribly sick? Will you still spar then? No. So when you make a second category goal, you also have to make like a caveat to all of them. Like all second category goals, they come with a caveat. And the caveat's just like, if reasonable. So, like going through them again, I will spar every Saturday, if reasonable. I will practice solo drills every morning, if reasonable. I will keep my equipment in good shape, if reasonable. Like these things can get in the way. The world can get in the way of second category goals, but if you give an honest effort, so asking yourself, oh yeah, it's Saturday, I'm just sitting on the couch reading a good book. Oh, should I go spar? Is it reasonable for you to go spar right now? And if the answer is like, yeah, nothing's really preventing me from going to spar, then the answer is you should go. Whereas if there's actually like some sort of emergency or a blizzard or some other like thing that like the priority is go to this thing instead of this thing, then it's not as reasonable for you to go and you can get out of this. But it's important to have like the caveat. Like, no, if you are feeling really under the weather, you don't have to do your solo drills that morning. But you have to get back on the horse. Like if you miss once, then you're in danger because you've just broken a streak, and human psychology is really messed up when it comes to breaking streaks. Like you meet people who are like, oh yeah, I was vegan for 10 years, but then I had a mac and cheese and now I eat burgers every day. Like, what? You could just get back onto the horse if the horse was important to you. The horse is like, oh, sorry, bud, didn't realize that I had kicked you off. You want to like come back on? And the answer is yes, get back on the horse. Except for dynamic stretching. There is no excuse. You do that. You do the stretching and a little bit of a warm-up before you do swords, or you don't do swords. It is always reasonable to do stretching before swords. So that is completely within your control because you can just choose not to do swords instead of not stretching first. Please. Okay, yeah, so we're done with the serious goal section. Now we're going to go to the silly goal section. Which is more fun. Oh, also, I didn't actually introduce the book that I was holding. This is Letters from a Stoic, Seneca. It's like a 2,000-year-old book, but it goes over the trichotomy of control a little bit. And I highly recommend it. If you need like a lifestyle philosophy book, this is really good. It's also surprisingly relevant. So, silly goals. Now these are not going to follow the rules of the serious goals because they're silly goals. I think of them more as like achievements. So you're playing your video game and then it like pops up like, oh, you've collected every plant. Why did you do that? But here you go, it's an achievement. It's like that, except for swords instead. So I made an actual list, so don't mind my piece of paper. Number 1, I want to attend the Purple Heart Open in Houston, Texas. This is apparently the tournament that my guild goes to every year, and I want to go. I was actually born near Houston, Texas. It sounds like a fun little adventure. The guild that I'm with apparently goes down and like rents a little Airbnb and has a bunch of fun, and I want to have a bunch of fun. So I'm going to go to the next Purple Heart Open. Number 2, I want to spar, this is an achievement, I want to spar a total of 100 people. Right now, I have it in my fencing journal, but I have sparred 5 people, and I want to get up to 100. So I will write down every person's name that I ever spar. Actually, it'd be kind of cute if I got their signatures or something. If I had like a guest book, except it was sparring, so you had to like sign my guest book. My fencing journal is not big enough for this, but I could like bring a poster and have people sign it. Anyway, that's a problem for a later date. But I want to spar 100 different people. I'm not sure what I will reward myself with once that happens, but I think that would be really fun. I also want to go to a tournament. I don't know what one, but I want to go to an international tournament and then spar with people who like don't speak my language, so that we only can communicate with our swords. My last video, someone commented and was like, "You should come to Europe," and yes, I will, and then it's on. I will lose horribly, but it'll be fun. I think it would be really cool to explore and eat food. Yeah, and swordplay, of course. Yeah, food is not my first priority when traveling. No. Okay, next silly achievement goal. Every technique that I have learned, I want to land in a spar. Not just like oh hey, I'm working on this technique. Will you help me with it? No. I don't want the person to know that I want to use a specific technique. And then I just want like a checklist in my journal of every single technique that I've learned. And then I want to go through and check each one off when I have used it successfully in a bout. So, okay, last week on Saturday, I challenged a person to a duel. That's not what they're called, a spar. And I wanted to take their sword from them and hit them with my sword. And we hadn't learned this. I asked someone to teach me how to do this. And so on Thursday, they taught me. And on Saturday, my goal for this spar was at some point when I had an opening to what's it called? To get them in the bind and then take theirs and you wrench it down and then you bash them. And I did it. It was such a good feeling. I had to run around them for like a minute, going, I did it. And they were a very good sport, and they were like, you did it. I don't know how you did that, but you did it. And that was a really good feeling. So now I want to go through and check off every single technique that I learn I will use, and then I will write down when I used it for the first time in a real spar. Yeah, achievements unlocked. I think that would be fun. Okay, here's a goal, and it's a difficult one. Okay, so right now I drive 30 minutes to get to my local guild, and I will continue to do that. I am not going to start a rival guild. However, I would love to have a local group of people who are willing to just walk to our local park and play with swords in an afternoon or something. And so my goal is to do that at least one time. And then if we like it, I think it would be fun to have an additional maybe once a month thing where I don't have to drive 30 minutes to go to practice. I can just go and have fun with swords at the local park, and we can freak out my neighbors. Okay, and here's my last silly goal. So, don't do that. So I have ordered my spez gear. So a jacket and some pants. And right now I ordered them in white because if you order things in white, you can then dye them any color that you want. And I want to dye mine pink. I'm just going to be pink. That's my whole goal. It's a silly goal, but I'm going to dye my stuff pink. I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so it's a silly goal. Okay. That was all my goals and things, but don't worry, the video is not over because I had a bullet pointed list of things that I wanted to talk about that aren't goal related. So number 1, I had a follow-up from last time. So weirdly enough, I met someone who I had not met before who had seen my last video. So I'm now famous. Despite there only being 86 views on the first video. It was a roommate of a friend of mine, and I'm not sure how they got onto the video. They're not into swords, but they met me for the first time. We were like, I had like a group of friends going to disc golf, and they were like, Aimee, and I was like, have I met this person before? Like, I am really bad at like names and faces, and everyone's wearing masks right now. So like, maybe I know this person. And they were like, no, I watched your video. And then they weren't into swords or anything, but they were good friends. And their first sentence to me was something along the lines of like, you're not as short as I thought you would be. Thank you. Thank you. So, last video I said I was an extra small and I had to order all extra small things. Yes, I'm extra small, but I'm still tall. The average American woman is 5'4" and I'm 5'6". So I am a full 2 inches above the average of the United States woman. And I'm not sensitive about it at all, but I am not short. Thank you. I am above average height. Yeah, that's all I wanted to clear up. So don't think that I'm going to be this short person when you meet me, because I'm very tall. Thank you. Moving on, I have just passed my beginner's courses for the Denver Historical Fencing Academy. So I am now no longer a beginner. I really am, but it's okay. Because now I can take intermediate classes. And the intermediate classes have been even better than the beginner's classes. At some point I should post a review of DeHIFA's beginner's women's class. But now I feel like we're delving deeper into the historical aspect, and I like historical things, so it's going really well. We're doing like basically like a lecture / presentation in the beginning where we talk about like what the actual text says, and then it like alternates with like a practicum where we then apply it. So like maybe 20 minutes, like maybe not even that, but like 10 minutes like listening and trying to figure out a technique, and then 10 minutes like swinging swords and trying to figure out a technique. And I've really been enjoying it. I thought it was great. Oh, okay, yeah, third. Look at it. I have finally received my sword Bible, and I already have stuff on the back of it. What is that? Here's my sword Bible. So I'm sure there are other systems and other guilds do different things. But for our guild, they recommend reading this first. It is The Art of Combat by Joachim Meyer. And he published this for the first time in 1570, which is a long time ago. And I've not really started reading it yet. I'm a little bit into the introduction. But if you would like to get this book and read it alongside me, I think it would be cool to do maybe a section by section like book club or something. I can be found in the WMA subreddits Discord, Western Martial Arts Discord. Also the Sphinxes Discord, which is the women's HEMA. I'll have links for you in the bottom. But yeah, come read this book with me and we can talk about it. It would be great. I had one thing that I had written down. I don't remember what it was. Oh, here, I'm going to read it. So this is just the translator, the person who translated this from the original German, just like complaining. He has a full, like, I feel like it's 20 pages. He has 31 pages of introduction that is just him complaining. It's not just him complaining. He's talking about the history of the text and the contemporaries around him and all of this. But he says at one point, a number of later manuscripts follow Talhofer's lead in offering a series of illustrations of combat techniques with little or no text to explain what is going on. I found this to be very funny. This person, yeah, they did a very good thing translating this work, but it is obvious that it was both a labor of love and a labor of frustration for him. Yeah, so I'm enjoying it. I am on page 20 of the introduction, and hopefully I will finish that introduction soon. So you are welcome to join me. Oh, okay, so fourth, we placed our sword order. Aren't you curious as to what sword I'm going to get? Also, our wall, our blank sword wall, it's not going to be so blank very soon. By very soon, I mean like 3 months. So like maybe December I'll finally have a sword. But yeah, I wrote down exactly what I got. I got a Siggy fetter, fetter, and I got it as a shorty. But I'm not short, but I got a shorty one. With a maestro shilt, which is like, instead of having it be triangular and spiky at the shilt, it's like more rectangular and nice looking. An onion pommel, a waisted cord handle, and a standard crossguard. Yeah, and then the sword wall will live. I'm really excited. I'm getting a cord handle, and it's burgundy, and it's gonna be beautiful. I asked them if they could do pink, and they were like, we can do burgundy, which was not a no. I should have pushed them on the pink, maybe, but I feel like I can always like record it later with pink if I want to. But burgundy is a great color too. I will accept it. Next. Oh, okay, yeah. So my guild, and I'm sure people in general have like a priority list of things that you're supposed to buy first. And sword is not on the top of that list. Sword is toward the bottom of that list. They're like, please get your normal equipment first, and then your sword later, because we have swords that you can borrow. But first on the list is a helmet. I'm sorry, it's a mask, a fencing mask. I call them helmets. They're obviously helmets, not masks. Anyway, I ordered one. And before you're disappointed in me, I will just say that I know what I'm doing. I ordered it from AliExpress. Please judge me silently, not in the comments. But I ordered a level 2 1600 N fencing mask. But it seems to be coming with it. It says it's coming with FIE certification. It looks fully legit, but it doesn't have the like $250 price tag of a level 2 fencing helmet. It was only like $108, including shipping. So AliExpress has a guarantee that if this is wrong in any way, and you can help me decide whether or not it's wrong in any way, I can return it for a full refund. But if it's right, then it was exactly my size and is not as expensive as like the Fates d'Armes level 2 system stuff, which is what our guild does. The Absolute Force helmet and the French Fates d'Armes helmet. That's their normal 2 ones, but I am being a rebel because those are expensive, and I still want like full protection, but just not full price tag. So I will let you know how that goes. And I will also have my lead instructor make sure that it's okay before I spar in it. Don't worry. Oh, okay, and 6th. So last video, I challenged you all to a pun war with swords, and the King of Nipples won the sword pun war last video with, I hate all swords that aren't fetters. The others just don't give a shilt. He won. Okay, so you win bragging rights as champion of sword puns from this moment henceforth. Anyone wishing to steal his crown, get to the point in the comments. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I'm done rambling. I think that was a good rambling video. I'm sorry, I don't know how long this has been. But thank you for joining me. And in order to keep track of which videos of mine you've seen, there's like a little like icon that's like this, and you could click it, and then it will be clicked, so you will always know which videos of mine you've already seen. Because YouTube doesn't always keep track very well, and like might recommend something that you've already seen, so it's really important to keep track of that with the like button. All right, sword friends, onwards and upwards until next week. Oh, I forgot to mention. Okay, like on Sunday, it's now Wednesday, a couple of my new guild friends came over, and we attempted to build pels, which are wooden posts that you can fight with swords as like a practice activity. And we did not fully succeed yet. We thought that we'll be done really fast, but instead we went to Lowe's, and it took like 2.5 hours to like get everything that we needed, because we thought Lowe's would cut it for us because it says that they will cut it for us on their website, but it turns out they will not cut weatherproof like treated wood. And so then we had to figure out scrapping it to my new friend's Subaru and getting it back home, and like everything went well as could be expected. But we did not have enough time to finish the Pels entirely. But we will have Pels soon, and I will show them to you when they're done. Okay, I'm done rambling. Bye. Onwards and upwards. Have a good sword week.